Wonderful. Hi, everyone. This is a hybrid program of the Garden Club of Jacksonville. This is Horticulture Corner, Throwing Shade. And this is a hybrid program, so we are both here in person with all of you. Thank you for being here. And we have people watching us on Zoom right now live. So we're so excited to have all of you here. My name is Denise Reagan. I'm the Executive Director of the Garden Club of Jacksonville, and I am thrilled to introduce our staff. If you would bring up that slide, please. There you go. I'm here with our operations manager, Morgan Pinks. You can wave to everyone. Wonderful. And Corinne Lightfoot, our brand new marketing and membership manager who was selling pecans in the back. And we have two of our event ambassadors here tonight, Simone Hawkins, who's helping run this program, and Jacob Senor, who is a brand new event ambassador who is on his training shift tonight. So we're really excited to have all of them here. Please introduce yourself if you get a chance later. Next slide. I'd like to thank the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund for making programs like this possible through a generous grant. We really appreciate that from them. And I'd also like to thank the chairs, the co-chairs of the horticulture program. Click on this. There you go. Meek Hardison and Susan Payne, who is here tonight checking you in. Thank you so much. They put together a great series of programs this year, including the next one, which is called Wild for Wildflowers. It features Master Gardener Mary Logenbach, who is going to be talking about wildflowers and how they are the perfect thing to bring a little natural habitat into your lives. So please join us, and that is February 7th, in February, and you can register for it now. We also have a couple of other programs coming up I'd like to talk to you about. One is called Combined Circles, 100 Years, and we're going to be talking about the process that the Garden Club went through to archive all of our files, our historic files, all of our photographs and scrapbooks and great old photographs, cool things. Emily Cottrell, I think I said that name right, was an intern when she first got this project at the Society. We donated all of our archives to them, and she is going to present that process through there. And she's now a full-fledged member of the staff at the Jacksonville Historical Society, so that's really cool. Also, we have Floralia Parallel Designs that's coming up on January 26th. And that is a program about how to use parallel in your floral arrangements. And so please go to our website and register for that. That's January 26th. We have a couple of big things coming up, big events at the Garden Club. Our big annual flea market is on February 25th. And that is the biggest garage sale you've ever seen. This whole ballroom is going to be filled with stuff. And it's all that otherwise would go into the landfill. So this is why the Garden Club puts on this program, because we're trying to keep those items out of the landfill. As you know, one person's trash is another person's treasure. So please come to that. There's also a preview party the night before on February 24th. So you can buy tickets to that. If you're a member, the tickets are free. If you're not a member, it's $25. So that's a really good deal. And you can get the best selection. Also, in April is Blooms Galore and More. That's on April 8th. That's a giant plant sale. All the plants filling our parking lot. It's so many plants. We also invite a bunch of plant vendors to come and sell in addition. And this whole ballroom will be filled with a green market of people selling honey and soaps and all sorts of cool items like that. So that's April 8th. And then we have a preview party for that on April 7th, because if you want to get the best selection of plants, you've got to come the night before. All right, so that's a little news about the Garden Club. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Juliet Johnson. Oh, sorry, I forgot about membership. If you're not a member, it would be really remiss of me if I didn't remind you to become a member of the Garden Club. It's easy. You can just go to our website and click join. If you have questions about becoming a member, you can visit our brand new business marketing and membership manager, Corinne, or you can ask me or any one of our staff members or members, including, we have several members who are here tonight. If you're a member of the Garden Club now, would you mind raising your hand? See, yeah, wonderful. You can ask them why they're members of the Garden Club as well. So thank you for that. And now I get to introduce our speaker, Juliet Johnson. Juliet has killed more plants than the average Floridian. She has learned through extensive and expensive experience, how to garden far away from her native United Kingdom. She is eternally grateful to the University of Florida and the Duval County Extension Office for their wisdom and patience, as she has slowly learned how to create lush, exciting garden spaces. Juliet is the bed head for both the Shade Garden in Walter Jones Historical Park and the Pineapple Garden at the Mandarin Garden Club. Succulents' magical propagation have captured her heart of late, while struggling with cut flowers is an ongoing adventure. Siri was answering my question, apparently. By the way, if you have devices that make noises, now's a good time to go ahead and turn them off. If you have questions tonight, if you're on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat so that we can pose them to the speaker. And if you're here in person, Jacob Senior, our brand new event ambassador, is going to walk around with a microphone. Please raise your hand if it's during the program so he can come to you so we can capture your question on our recording. And we'll also have a short Q&A afterward. All right. So with that, I would like to hand it off to Juliet Johnson. Please give her a warm welcome.
Can you hear me now? Gosh, remember when Dan Rather said that? Okay, you can hear me now. Lovely, lovely. Nothing pretty grows in the shade. Have you ever heard that? I was at a hardware store last January and I was shopping, looking at some lovely things, trying to cheer myself up because it was January. And some girl next to me said, "Oh, nothing pretty grows in the shade." And I thought, oh, you're not right. You're not right. There are some wonderful things. It's just you've got to know the game you're playing. And so this presentation started, and that's how it was born, and that's where it comes from. And so tonight we will be exploring some opportunities to add some fun to some shady bits. Show of hands, who here has a shady garden? Yeah, isn't it nice? The lovely trees. It stops it getting hot, doesn't it? Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Why me? I'm a master gardener, so I'm easy to kind of call up and get to come along. Obviously, my accent is British. I'm not Australian. I could be related to convicts, but you never know. Ancestry DNA has me related to everybody, so I think it's certainly possible. When I first came out of college in Massachusetts, I moved to New York and then eventually New Jersey. I gardened there. And here in Florida, I live on the edge of a swamp. So gardening issues are something that I can relate to with my colleagues and my fellow residents. In fact, this is my shade garden, one angle of it. And you'll see that I am a total gardener. I have one of everything. And this, you see all the trees behind, that is my swamp. It is my yoke to bear, and I will talk more about it as we go through. Let us begin anytime when we've got it organized. Okay, I welcome the master gardeners in the room, and I hope they will give me lots of leeway. I see Billy from Clay, Jeff obviously from Duval, Susan from there, and Walter, I know you're online, and I say a big welcome to you. All right, and anyone else who's taking notes to try and catch me out. Next slide, please. What is the gardening game? What are we always trying to do? Can we go back one? We're always looking at color and texture and movement. We have to worry about timing, and there's a constant battle, is there not, against the evildoers, the bugs, the lovely wildlife, the weather, etc. But when it comes to shade, the game we're playing is mood, textures, and colors. And we have a little more creative and a little more resourceful how we're going to combine those three things to get something lush and luscious and lovely and fun and vibrant, and combos that actually work. This is just a little corner. You can see when you take 4 or 5 plants and you have it in a little vignette that it looks really quite nice. I was excited by this one, but let's go on. So shade plants. Shade plants in general tend to be bigger. They have bigger leaves because they need more chlorophyll. They tend to have stronger colors and they tend to last longer. We know that plants need light to grow. I suppose we all need a bit of light, really, don't we? A couple of different kinds of light. There's direct sunlight, there's reflected or filtered light, which is our friend when we're doing shade gardening. We'll come back to that, so let's remember that one. And then there's shade, which comes in the various forms of muted light, which is not the absence of light, it's just muted light. And then there's the degree of light that we have. Changes all the time, changes with time of day, changes with seasons, it changes. Changes according to the time of day. Most of our plants tend to want morning sun or direct sun, and that's what they like. Plants love that because the sun is slightly lower in the sky and it's less intense, so that's kind of fun for them. At midday, the sun is at its highest, right? So it's at its most intense. Any shade plant doesn't like that. In the afternoon in Florida, it's the hottest. I don't know, in my area of Jacksonville, the hottest time of day is 4 o'clock. Anyone else the same? I always thought it was going to be noontime, but no, it's 4 o'clock. Weird, but that's how it is. Evening sunlight's lovely, buggy, but lovely. Doesn't help your plants much. How does the light filter and get through to your plants? Things you have to consider is the foliage density, right? The branches above, the reflected light, we're going to come back to that, and then the seasonal patterns. So some of your gardens might be shady in the summer, but they might get a lot of sun late fall and early spring because the sun's at a different angle. It's really strange in Jacksonville how much the sun comes in at that funny angle, don't you find? And don't you find that in spring and fall and late fall and winter, some of your beds are getting a lot of sun and you think, ooh, this is the year I can grow all sorts of fun things. And then the leaves come back on the trees and the whole thing closes back in and you're back to shade. Happens, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So these are the things that we just have to kind of be aware of and keep in mind. So shade tolerant plants, when you look at a label, and I've brought a few, but when you look at the label, it'll say on the back of it, shade tolerant, or it wants dappled light. That means it can be shade that shifts. The sun can, the tree can move and the sun comes through it. Why does this keep doing that? Is it me that's making it pop? Is it okay? It's too close. Okay. All right. Is that better? Can you all still hear me? If you can't hear on Zoom, you could have come in person. It wouldn't have killed you. Okay. Okay. I don't know where we are. Oh, yes. If it's 4 or fewer hours, that's considered shade, right? So if you want to put something, I only brought shade plants, but if you want to put something really fabulous into a shady spot, it's not going to work if it has 4 or fewer. That's what they mean by shade. So when you see something that says partial shade, it's got to have at least 4+ hours. Otherwise, it's not going to be happy. It's just going to, it'll have a number of problems. And we're going to go into those because that's what gardening is all about, is the problems and overcoming them. So it's difficult if your yard is dense and dark and gets very little sun. It's difficult and considered shade if it's under an awning, or if it's under the roof line of the house. That's considered shade as well. Like if somebody has you know how all these new developments that they're building have houses right up against one another, and then there's the overhang, and then there's the person's fence, and really there's not any sun getting in and there's no wind getting in, so that counts as shade too. If it's dominated the space roots, that counts as shade because a plant can't really be a tree root, or if it's very wet or very dry. It is difficult conditions. There are advantages to shade. This is what we have to remember. There are advantages. Slower growth is one of them. Theoretically, less maintenance. I would debate that. a more relaxing pace. The colorful things, when they do bloom, they last longer. I mean, how many people grow turmeric or that ginger stuff? Exactly. And it lasts about a month, doesn't it? It's fabulous. Whereas all the perennial people are like, where did it go? Oh, so we, you know, they keep on going. The foliage doesn't burn, theoretically. And according to the University of Florida, there are less insects. To come to my yard, there's plenty of insects. There's plenty of them in the swamp, in the wet shade. On we go. The disadvantages: the fungi and the bacteria loves it. Don't you find, Billy? I mean, you get everything. You get you get that fungus, all sorts of things. Stinkhorn. How many people have come across stinkhorn? Anybody met a stinkhorn? Was it a pleasant experience, madam? Have you recovered? And then there's this yellow thing that I posted on Instagram. It was so frightening. Apparently it's gall. Well, it galled me just plenty, I'll tell you. All right. So we've got to lighten it up, right? We need to lighten it up. How many times have you said to someone, "I just lighten it up"? Well, in my garden, I want to lighten it up. You've got some options. You could lift up the trees. You can get somebody in and have them snip up the trees, or we could put in a water feature. Look at the lovely reflected light on this lovely image of a shade garden. They've done something fairly clever. I think you can see behind the fountainhead, and we'll come to that in a little minute. They're playing with reflections by lightening up the colors of the plants, right? And they've got some other white things. If you are going to the tree branches, I recommend you call an arborist. And here's the phone number of the city arborist at the University of Florida and Duval County Extension Office, Larry Feiget. There's his phone number. Tell him Juliet told you to call. Oh, go back one. I'm so sorry. Quick tip, QT. Insufficient sunlight. This is how you know that you've guessed it wrong. Insufficient sunlight leads to leaf drop. So if you put a plant somewhere and the wretched thing starts to throw off its leaves, one of the primary reasons it could be, of many, a lot of which could be your fault, but it could also be that it simply is not getting enough sun. Consider that. All right, now we can go on. What do you reckon? Would you put a mirror in your garden in Jacksonville, in 9A in Florida? Is, and they do it, you can see it on Instagram all the time. It's a way to reflect light, bounce light into a shady area. What have you got to be? Yeah, the mirror being at an angle and forest fires. I mean, we get super dry. We're also super wet. Got it every which way. But so be a bit careful. If you're going to do a mirror, don't do a lot of it at an angle, right? Because we bounce light in funny ways. But we do want, Simone, my darling, let's go back one. What we do want is we do want some reflective surfaces. And I will do that for you beautifully. You know, you might want to have, what's that thing called, Jeff? You probably remember, mosquito dunks, is it? Those tablets that you drop into standing water so that we don't get mosquitoes. We never want standing water. On we go, on we go. So we've got some ideas. We've got some things we could do that does look gorgeous, doesn't it? Moving on. Okay, roots. How many people have trees around their house? It creates roots. And have you ever tried to dig into the roots? You're exhausted after 5-10 minutes, aren't you? In the competition between the tree root and a plant, the tree usually wins. It's got way more resources than you do. Plus, they talk to each other. They now tell us, you know, what they're saying. It's hard to dig. And with perennial weeds that grow by rhizomes, you know, it's really, really hard. So let's consider other options. If you're trying to grow stuff underneath the tree, which I recommend, but use a container. And there are a number of reasons to do that, but there are some sexy new containers now. You can get containers made out of cork. You can get root bags, which are made out of recycled plastic that are great fun. They come in, you know, 3, 5, 7, 10. you know, 10 tends to be pretty big, and it's not so easy to lift if you're a frail old soul like myself. But, you know, if you've got a hunky fella around, or you want to meet the neighbor down the street, it's a great way. Hey, excuse me, could you help me lift my, it's an option. I don't know, could be. Bark. You know, people often will leave chunks of tree by the side of the road, hoping that somebody will come and pick them up. One option is to peel the bark off, take it home, wrap a piece of string around, fill it with dirt. It's a beautiful planter. Didn't cost you anything. A lovely option. Lovely option. If it's too difficult, if it's too hard to dig it all up, which it is, if it's too hard to do the other things, what are the other options? If you can't face having plants, what are some of the options? You could do an outdoor garden room. Here's the University of Florida's recommendation for an outdoor garden room. I think this was probably 1960, but and it's got a petunia in it. Well, you know, winter. So, okay, I mean, that's one option. So then let's go back one. What are some other options? You could do a sculpture garden. Somebody's husband that I know quite well found some rebar on the side of the road that somebody was throwing away, about 12 foot of rebar, 2 of them, and they were all floppy, so they weren't going to be used in a landscape, in a building situation. So he put it in the back of his Prius and brought it home and spray painted it bright pink and stuck it in the garden, and is apparently, it's a sculpture. This is the same person who decided that my Amazon habit required us to have a fire pit so that he could burn all the boxes. Okay, fine. A sculpture garden's a great idea. You don't have to put up with mad reusing of detritus that other people throw away. Hardscaping is an option. What's an idea of a hardscaping? A patio, nice patio, a bit of a path going nowhere. It's kind of curious and mysterious and fun. A water feature, great idea. Don't forget mosquito dunks. Hope you all wrote it down. Also, the combination of sculptures. There's this guy. This was taken at the tropical. Here we go. This incredible structure is a tillandsia holder. You know those little aeroid plants that you can get that just grow on their own? So this is tree sculpture where you put in different kinds of tillandsia and it just blooms. It's just gorgeous. It's a stunning thing. No matter how much I stood in this booth at the Tropical Plant Expo, I couldn't get people to move. But I thought, oh, well, perhaps this man will inspire me to work out. Look at his legs. Moving on. Another option is to tie a plant to a tree like orchids. So orchids love being outside for at least 10 months here in Jacksonville, right? Anyone grow orchids? Anyone? Yeah. And how long can they be outside? They quite like it, right? They do. They're happy outside. You can attach them to the tree and then they'll bloom in the tree. My orchids bloom every 6 weeks. Anyone else? I mean, they're lovely, aren't they? They can be great fun. So that's an option. That's a photograph from somebody down in, this was a high school project in further down the state, but in Florida. So that was lovely. And then what kinds of plants? There are some great options. Broadleaf is better. What's broadleaf? It just means bigger, fatter leaf, right? Foliage plants like house plants. We talked about that with what was that thing called that just went mad? It was in Mandarin. I just showed you a photograph of it. But anyway, all house philodendron. Nope. Was it a pothos? Thank you very much, Billy. Clay County Master Gardeners, ladies and gentlemen, really right down front. Number, okay, fine. Ferns are good. And remember the film, the talk show, and then the film Between Two Ferns with and Zach Galifianakis. Yes, I can say it. Can you? I'll have a Greek salad with that. Thank you. Tropical perennials, lots of options. We can talk about some of those. And of course, woodland natives are always a great success in shade. Now, if you've got moist shade, be a bit more careful. Moist shade, plants don't like it. If they're the kind of plants that go dormant, your caladiums, things like that go dormant. If it's moist, they'll rot. This is why we don't grow tulips here in the ground very often. Why we don't have daffodils, because the bulbs rot. So we tend to put them in pots, and then we pull them out and we put them on one side, right? If you're insistent and you really want to because it matters to you and you've got your mum's tulip, get a bed, a raised bed, so that you can draw the water away. Try and get a foot above the moist area and give it a go. Sometimes you can be really quite full with that. All right. I don't know about you, maybe weeds are a ground cover for you. They certainly are in my front lawn. The HOA be damned. Here are some ground covers. You don't have to write them all down. They are on the UF website. If you go to Ask IFAS, and I will be giving out the web address at the end of my talk, so you'll be able to just look in some ground covers. But we all know Asiatic jasmine. We all know that you can grow hostas in Florida. There's a couple of them that really work. Liriope, you see them in the front of HOA buildings. They go very well. Cast iron tends to divide people. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's a lovely joke. I don't know. The cast iron plant is called aspidistra. And there's a lovely joke. Going back to 70s, 80s, BBC in England, and two writers were trying to decide if they could, were trying to bet one another whether or not they could get this joke on TV. And it's two middle-aged women going for a walk, and they see this man in the window cleaning his plant. And one woman says to the other, oh, look, it's the cleaning his aspidistra. And the other woman goes, horrid man, he should do that in the bathroom. It did get on the air. It did. It did. All right. Mondo grass, you see that around. You see some of the other things. Let's talk about the color. Let's move a little forward to the flowering. People always do impatience. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, stop doing impatience. There's so many more options. Plus, which I don't know about you, but I find impatience isn't always happy in shade. It can take an attitude and just curl up and die. It's not always worth the money. I don't know if it doesn't like the nematodes in my soil. I don't know if my soil's too good for the impatience. But if you must have impatience, there is a wonderful seed you can get that is a camellia impatience. It's a double and it self-seeds. And I heartily recommend that. So consider that as an option. The double blooming camellia, that is the photograph of it. Here is another graph of it in a container with some lovely combinations, little colliers, little Plactanthus, some ferns, little Polymonium, really rather lovely. All right, begonias, that's the other big thing, right? Impatience and begonias. Well, be careful about begonias. I think begonias do best when they're limited in color. So try to never leave them alone. They don't have enough going on. Yes, they've got a waxy leaf and that gives you a color, and then the flower gives you something, but the flower's over and it takes a little minute for the next one to come. You're better off playing it with the contrast. There's also angel wing begonias, which I think work quite nicely, but let's show you some more. See this? I don't know if you like this. This is a stand of begonias. See how they've limited the color so that it's orange, red, and pink, and how pretty it looks because it's in the same family of colors. Does anyone like that? It's kind of cute, right? Can we get the, is there any way that we, Jacob, do you know how to do that? Get the base off the bottom of the slides for folks so they see the big, well, let's go on. I'm kind of on a roll here. I've got some stuff I really want to show you that's really lovely. Here's angel wing begonia, that white, beautiful inclination thing. Isn't it great? And then here's ordinary white news, but by limiting it, Billy's giving up on me. Isn't this fun? Thank you, Clay County. Thank you for listening to my TED talk. Okay. Good night, Seattle. Okay. See the pink polka dot? That's kind of fun. With a little bit of the white, you get the contrast, you get the color. It's all rather amusing. Color combinations are your friend. You don't need to go berserk in a shade garden. You just need a couple of really strong contrasting colors, and look how alive and fun the combo can be. In this particular combination, we've got the shield, which actually was on sale and in the checkout counter at Lowe's today, and I couldn't be more thrilled because this is going to give me what? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got 12 plants out of this. How am I going to do it? The thing with Purple Shield is you can use a forsyth pot, or you just simply cut down to here, put it in a glass of water, and these all root. So your shade plants, they may have cost, this I think cost me $3.50, but I'm going to get 12 plants out of this thing. It's going to be fantastic, isn't it? So you've got some options with shade plants. Coleus will do the same. I brought my forsyth pot to show you how to put things in to propagate, and you can see that after my slide presentation is over. This is fantastic Coleus. They come in so many different colors, and they're so easy to propagate. You cut the stem, put it in some water, it roots within a couple of days, right? How many people propagated Coleus? And you buy 1 or 2 plants, and you've covered your whole space, right? And then you just tuck in 2 little tiny things for color, for movement, and you've got a great vibrant yard. Huge bang for buck on the Coleus. This is a magazine. It's not real life, but gorgeous. A little caladium, some drooping white thing, and then some lovely creeping Jenny coming down. All right, but you can be inspired by that. Here it is in my garden. I mean, no, it doesn't look the same, but it doesn't look terrible. It's lush. It's got there, you see the Coleus going berserk. They've all been pollinated. Those were 5 plants that have been propagated to Ross. A little bit of Hawaiian tea for some color in the back. You can, if you peer really closely, you can see somebody's rebar sculpture for the sculpture garden. And we've got some water. So, you know, we've got a little few things going on. When I first came to America, one of the people I ran into was a lovely woman from London who'd gone to some incredibly posh horticultural college, and who told me that the thing to do about shade gardening was to put your whites far away and your colors up close. That's one school of thought. Here's another one. Put your cools up front, and if you put warm colors like your use and your orange and your red in pockets, it perhaps looks like sun. Perhaps, you know, it just looks like a little emphasized corner. How do you all feel? Has anyone ever heard either of these 2 arguments? Who's up for whites far away, brights up front so you can see them? Yeah. I mean, I keep thinking of the writing garden that Monty Don has. Isn't it gorgeous? Just white gardens. They're so beautiful. White far away, colors up front. Makes sense. But what about trying in a soothing white and green space, suddenly a patch of color in an interesting shade that would look like dappling through the leaves, especially if you could get it to move a little, you know, if it was a bit of a windy spot, how stunning would that look? That could be great. Could be great fun. So something to consider. Anyone here? This is a new problem for me where I am, because they took out the dairy farm and some of the preserve and put in another housing development. And so all the wildlife has moved into my backyard. I now have deer, I now have coyotes, I now have even more raccoons who walk across my backyard thinking they're, you know, the bee's knees. They're just not fun or entertaining, really. So do with deer. What do they not eat? I mean, it didn't used to be a problem for us. It used to be a problem for the people up north, but unfortunately, they've moved with all the northerners. So they came in the trucks, you know. I don't know. But some things to consider. Deer don't eat ginger. They don't eat heelies. They don't eat bleeding heart, and they don't eat bromeliads. Bromeliads, big friend for us. What did not get hit in your garden with the 3-4 days of frost was the bromeliads. Did you know they were frost resistant? I did not. And I did not even go and get the water out of the tanks in the center of my plants. Everything else decimated. The bromeliads, guys, we've got to consider bromeliads. We've got to give them a hard look. These are not just the things you put on a desk. These are not the things you take to the, well, you can't take plants into a hospital anymore, but you used to show up with the bed and the person was grateful, you know, half dead, but grateful. You know, and the plant was more alive than the patient. It was a different time. You can't do that anymore. But bromeliads is a thought, and we need to consider that. Pineapple turns out to be a bromeliad. So now that I'm in the pineapple garden at Mandarin Club, I have to have, gloves and protective equipment, spiked by bromeliads. They're mean. Somebody has a question. Of course it's Billy, but at least he's back. Statement. Billy from Clay County Master Gardeners. Spanish moss is a bromeliad. Billy was at the bromeliad presentation in Clay County at the Orange Park Garden Club where I met him. So I know that he knows that, and I know where he knows that from. Enough with you, Billy. My presentation. When it's your presentation, you can tell everybody what you know. Nobody cares. Moving on. He's a lovely boy. All right. Texture. What can we do for texture? Obviously, bromeliads, nice spiky texture, lovely, lovely, lovely. But we can combine glossy leaves with matte leaves, right? We can have some fun with that. We can vary some ferns. Those spiky ferns, there's the soft floppy ferns, there's the one everyone's allergic to. Nice. And if you really cross with your partners, are some to go and weed in the upset his skin, it's an option. Any more sculptures, dear? Perhaps you could do some weeding and we'll put the sculpture there. It's an option. Medium leaves, fine leaves, larger bold leaves. When you look around, there's some options. That Terrenia is a thing that just seeded it, terribly pleased. Right. So when you think about textures, what is calm and tranquil versus what is more exciting? It turns out that the recommendation is that if you vary fine leaves with medium-sized leaves, it's thought to be calm and tranquil. If you want something very dramatic, you take fine leaves, and by fine leaves, they're thinking kind of grasses or something that's long and thin and kind of wafts about. That's considered fine. And then bold would be those big elephant ear things. And if you find a combination of plants, it's called a vignette. Obviously, we all know this. If you find one vignette that's successful, what do gardener designs do? They repeat it every so often. And then it looks like it's been designed by some incredibly well thought of person. And actually, it's just you found a few things that gave it another go. You did 3 or 4 of them and it works. It's good. It's good. Good design. Well, they've got a bit of color, haven't they? There's some Hawaiian tea at the back, and they've got some water. They've got some movement, right? We've got different textures. We could do this. What's the thing that's missing here? For me, a little bit more color. They obviously don't have a lot of wind coming through, but as a shady garden, it's kind of a good one. It's a good one. All right. Here's a little trick. If you really want your plants to bloom, or you need a bloom that is a shade plant, like, for example, well, this is cyclamen, and they're doing quite well, although these were on chuck out because they had dead versions. But if you just trim them off, they come back. But so, sorry, is that better? Could you get on this side? I'm actually missing a tooth. No, never mind. If you put these in the sun for a couple of hours, couple of days, and then move them into the shade. Remember we talked about the root bags? This is a good game. You put your thing in the sun for a bit, but it won't like a lot of sun. Then quickly move it into the shade, move your things around. You'll find you end up with some nice blooms. It helps. Is it true that all flowering plants 5 hours of direct sunlight? Don't answer. Billy, Jeff, any other? Yes. Would we agree? It is. So if you've got something in deep shade and it's not doing very well, move it into the sun for a bit and then move it back. And you'll find that that's an option. If you don't know how much shade or sun you've got, here's the petunia test, which I'm sure you've heard of. If not, let me tell you about the petunia test. You have a petunia. If it blooms and flourishes, you've got full sun. If it grows a lot of leaf but doesn't bloom, you've got part sun, part shade. If it struggles to grow at all, you're in shade. Or you're a horrible gardener, give up and go and do the bingo. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Gardens take time. They do. So give yourself a break. You're doing good. Hang in there. Just keep trying. Because eventually you find the combinations of things that look magnificent together. I'm just going to step out of frame for a second. I'll be back. Like, so you wouldn't think ordinarily to put these kinds of things together, but they look gorgeous. If you stand there in whatever plant store you're in, and you just try the contrast, try and limit your color palette in terms of bloom, but vary up your, can you see? Vary up your foliage. Let's add another one just to give it some oomph. I think, let's see if the Persian shield works. Does that look kind of fun in the back? See, and what we've done is we've limited our color palette, but we're varying our texture, and it just really looks fun. And so I really encourage you to try and to play and to explore, but use foliage as your friend. Okay, on we go. Last slide, I think. Oh, no, not quite last slide. Here's page 1 of things that bloom in the shade. Here's page 2. Between this lot, there are some fun things you can combine. And if you use foliage as your color, then you've got a lot more options. Here, we only have, in this planter, on this slide, we only have one thing that blooms, but we're awash in color, and we're getting it from the foliage. What fun. So we just have to change the way we think about it, right? You're going to get the website where you can look this up, and you're going to be able to print it, and it's all going to be fine. Here are some tips. Gardens do take a while to fill in, so when you plant them, give them a bit of space. But in the shade, they probably won't get to be quite as big as if they're in partial shade. So you only need to give them 2/3 of the space that they would normally have. Have I got that right? They can be 2/3 closer together than they would be under other circumstances. I think that's right. I think that's right. Maybe not. Billy, when it comes to question time, I'm sure bring it up. Okay, which is fine. Remember that plants grow slower in the shade, but they do grow. Give them a chance. Usually what happens is they take a while to acclimate, and then all of a sudden they go berserk, they bolt. So, and if you vary your heights, wildlife likes it, but also it's aesthetically pleasing, so it's kind of fun. And here is the reliable source. I was going to say everyone get a pencil and write it down. GOOG. No. Research-based, reliable information is at University of Florida. They have tons of students and great professors and great research. Nothing that they publish is without tremendous amounts of research, so you can rely upon it. It's not guru du jour, you know, it's not the most fashionable person. If you're completely lost and your garden just feels like nothing will grow, call the Duval County Florida Friendly team, and you'll get 3 gardeners that will come to your house for free and will do a walk around with you and explain what would work, what wouldn't, what you're doing that is Florida friendly in terms of 9 principles. And those 9 principles include things like reducing the amount of water that you're using, having the right plant in the right place, making sure that things aren't too close to the building so that you get more pests and more problems, various things like that. So they'll come and help you. So get hold of the Duval County Extension Office, ask the Florida Friendly team to come by, and they will do that and for free and help you. And other than that, now I'll take questions, Billy.
All right, so if you have in the audience, Jacob will come and bring the microphone to you. Please raise your hand. And if you have questions on Zoom, please put them there and we will put your question to Juliet.
Well, I should probably rely on my colleagues to help with the question. There's a
Okay.
question down front. Jacob? Jacob is doing our Phil Donahue thing. And while he gets there, I want to tell you just a quick story. When I was an intern back in 1980, I went to see the Phil Donahue show live. And they had Julia Child on that day. And she and Phil are having a marvelous time. She's cooking away. Julia Child, and everyone knows who she is, right? She was a cook and she used to drink wine. And she would say, you know, 1 for the pot and 1 for me, with every glass. And she was busy doing that. And suddenly a voice comes from the back. The towel's on fire. She goes, what? And they said, the towel's on fire. She goes, oh. And she picks up the bottle of wine and she douses it out and then says to Phil Donahue, I'm going to need another bottle of wine. And I saw it live. It really did happen. Ma'am, your question.
I have a live oak in my front yard, and
on?
there is it not working?
Is it on?
This lady has live oak in her front yard.
Okay, yeah, make sure it's close.
Okay,
Lovely.
it's beautiful, but there is a ground cover that I believe is a weed, and I've tried to look it up. I think it's called basket grass. You ever heard of that? I tried to pull it all up, and it just came right back. It's real easy to pull up, but it turns brown in the winter. So it's one side of my yard that has sun is St. Augustine. The other one is brown because of this ground cover under my oak tree. So I just wondered if there's any way to get rid of it, or
How far down are you digging? Are you finding the root or are you
the
finding the
roots
rhizome?
I mean, it comes up so easy when you pull it, and the
So you're
root
pulling
comes-
it, you're not digging.
No, I'm pulling it. Is that the
So
problem?
sometimes, probably,
Okay.
very often with these rhizome spreading grasses, what they'll do is they'll spread by the nub of a root, and it's probably about 8 inches down, and it will run every which way. And if you don't go all the way down and get all of it out, then it's having a party. Yeah, I mean, that's one option. Anyone else? And he's looking it up, so we'll have a better answer any minute now. Jeff, how are you doing with your shade garden? I'm talking to Jeff because he's a new master gardener. He became a gardener in class of 2021, 22. So Jeff, I guess, is 22. I was 21. I say that I'm 21 again. Done that a couple
Do we
of
have any
times.
questions in the audience? Raise your hand if you do. There's one right there. Good.
So my question also involves a live oak in the front yard. It seems to spew acorns and leaves like all the time. And so I'm wondering like how people handle that in Florida. Like I'm new to this far north and to having a tree in my front yard. And so I'm not sure like if I did a garden, like how the tannins from the acorns would affect that. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice for that.
So your question, the lady has a live oak in her front yard, which throws off a lot of acorns. Does it also throw off a lot of leaves? The leaves, I'm not so sure about the acorns. They, I think, just you have to gather them up and use them for something else. But the leaves can be incredibly useful. Citrus greening is a problem that we've had a lot of in Florida lately. And there is a thing called a live oak wash, where you take all your live oak leaves, put them in a bucket, soak them for a couple of days, and then that liquid that comes off is a phenomenal fertilizer, and particularly for citrus trees. So that's an option. The live oak wash, I guess live oak tea, is a great option for you if you've got any citrus. Also, live oak leaves mulch is really good for vegetable gardening and stuff. There are a number of people nodding, so I know that I'm on the right track there. So even my friend in Duval County, he likes it too. Great. More questions? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone at all?
Where am I?
Anyone really?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I think we have one more. Yes, here she is. Lovely lady in the back.
Hi. I have, the poinsettias.
I'm sorry.
I have a poinsettia.
She has a poinsettia. The lady has a poinsettia.
I had this poinsettia last year.
Same one.
Same one. Do you not know it's growing? But it didn't, the little red leaves didn't come out, but it's so big. So I'm like, this is weird to me, but it didn't bring the red leaves, the red on it. But it just got the greenery.
Lovely,
And
lovely
it was a
question.
little baby, now it's really big. So
So-
is that, I don't know. I
So
didn't know.
the lady is asking us about her poinsettia. She got it last year. Did you plant it in the ground or is it still in a pot? She repotted it into something lovely probably. And it's gigantic, but it didn't produce red leaves for her. Instead, it bloomed little tiny clusters of red. That is the bloom on a poinsettia. The trick with poinsettias and what they all do is around November, end of October, they completely cover them, and it's the lack of light that makes the leaves turn red. I don't know why, but so what you're seeing is something that Floridians love to boast about because it's so fun that they can plant their poinsettias and those little tiny red leaves on top, those are the blooms. So kind of fun, kind of a fun thing. Yes, I thought somebody else had a comment about that. Yeah, yeah. How many other people have tried that with poinsettias, put them in the ground? Yeah, did you have nice results? Oh, and you're from Illinois. You did it in Illinois. No. This lady from Illinois plants her poinsettia every year and then takes it in. And do you cover it so that it goes red, or do you like the little clusters? Cover it, cover it. All right. Anybody else? Yes, gentleman down front.
Oh,
Now, is the gentleman down front a gardener, or do you have a drug problem, sir? Did you get drugged here by your wife?
microphone, please.
No, the question I have is one that I've asked other gardeners, and that is a plant that will grow in the shade, bloom in the wintertime.
Ooh. Bloom in the winter. With frost or without? Take it either way. Okay, Mr. Clay County Billy, over to you.
Like hydrangeas, for instance, there's one that comes to mind.
Speak
My
into the
oak-
microphone,
My,
please.
my oak leaf hydrangeas, for sure, they'll die back in the winter time completely. And then once the last frost comes, I cut them all down and then they'll just continue growing the next season. But yeah, typically they'll not bloom in the winter time.
I have a thought for you. I think blue sage. Now, the problem with blue sage is that, and we didn't know this until we had a hard freeze, but the blue sage there's a variety that blooms beautifully. I have photographs and it's at Mandarin Garden Club. I took 3 cuttings and put it in March this year, and it started to turn into a beautiful shrub. And it has half of the plants, 2 of them were too small and they've fallen prey to the hard freeze we had. But 1 is still doing beautifully, and it will produce a beautiful blue flower in January. Here today, gone tomorrow, I think is another option. If it's not that one, then there's a purple thing. I can see it in Mandarin Garden Club. A Lenten rose. I don't know a Lenten rose. Does anyone, the lady down front is suggesting a Lenten rose is something that blooms in the winter. I think it depends on our frost and what kind of conditions we have, but I don't know a Lenten rose. I'd love to find out more about it. It's a good suggestion. Somebody else?
Yes, I'm from North Carolina, and the Lenten rose will do well with frost. So it's a good choice. It even goes to zone 9. So
There's a
I'll-
lady from North Carolina and she admits it in public. And
Okay.
she says
I-
that she has a Lenten rose and it does very well down here, and it'll bloom fine in the winter, right?
Yes.
Right,
Very
lovely,
early spring.
lovely.
Very, very early.
Great. So Lenten rose, thank you, ma'am. That was a beautiful suggestion. Lenten rose, we recommended. We're not coming back to you. Okay.
All right, we have, we'll do one last question and it's from Zoom.
Okay,
And-
he can't bear it. We have to go back to Billy from Clay County. Bromeliads, of course, they do bloom, and there are some lovely blooms. Oh, camellias. Yes, of course, camellias. Oh, sorry, Walter, from the Florida Native Plant Society, who talks about camellias. Yes, camellias, brilliant idea.
Yes. If you'd like to see some beautiful camellias, you could look on our
Absolutely.
breezeway over there.
You've got some
All
lovely
right,
ones.
so we do have a question on Zoom. I recently moved from the Midwest and I am across the street from the ocean and trying to grow in high salt and wind, shade, sandy and dry on mounds. Please help her.
You love this location, don't you? Oy. Tell me again, how many problems we got? We got
It's
sand,
all of
what
the
else?
above. Yeah, it's not right here. Yeah. So it's across the street from the ocean and it's salt and wind, shade, sandy and dry on mounds.
Dry, sandy, windy, salty. There's a bunch of stuff actually. That sounds grim, but there are a couple of things from summer and fall that will keep going all the way through the winter. One of them I'm thinking is a beach daisy. I call it a gazania, but I don't think it's called that here. The yellow and red one, they bloom all the way through. There's a number of great options. Can we get your email and we'll get back to you with a better list?
Yes.
There are some fun things that you can enjoy.
That's
You'll
great.
like.
Yes,
You'll
so
be
we'll,
all right.
to give us her email and we'll
Yep,
try to
We'll
connect.
get back to her.
All right.
Well, guys, this was just
yeah.
wonderful. I thank you so very much for your time. I really do. Thank you. Thank you, Denise.
All right. So if you could go to the next slide. And one more. All right. So we have a survey for you. And actually it's two surveys in one. So the next slide is the Garden Club would like you to take. Next slide. Thank you. So if you are at home, you can scan this with your phone. And if you're here, you can also scan it with your phone. And this is great. Like, I really want this picture of everybody's like taking a picture of the screen. That's great. Fantastic. Look at all of you. So thank you for doing that. We really love your feedback. We want to hear from you. Not only what you thought about this program, but what do you think about other programs? And then we're also going to be handing out, and if one of you could help, Jacob, you could help there, do a survey for UF-IFAS. So 2 surveys, not just one. And I'm sorry if you're not here in person, you're not going to get to do this, but we really want to get your feedback, and UF-IFAS would also like your feedback. So we thank you for coming tonight. Please, if you're interested in joining, please speak to one of the folks here who would love to help you. If you want some pecans, please buy some pecans on your way out. It's the last couple. So what you see on the table is all we have. So have a good evening. Thank you so much, and come back again. Good night.